What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Chamber. And now that we are halfway through January, it is probably past due time for me to talk about my most anticipated games for the year of 2023. Now, just like with movies, there's often some surprises. There's often some games that aren't on my radar that end up being my favorites of the year. But as far as the big, high-profile games that are at least confirmed or rumored to be this year, I have 10 very solid ones that I hope are going to be in my list because some of them are really important to me. Some of them just look like they're going to be cool. Inevitably, one or two are going to be disappointing, but we'll talk about that. We'll cross that bridge whenever we get to it, right? So, with that being said, guys, if you are a movie fan, over on my main channel, I've already done a multitude of these end of the year and beginning of 2023 lists. I've done my worst and best of last year as far as movies, my most anticipated, my most surprising, most disappointing, all of that. So I'll put a playlist up here of that playlist if you are a movie fan. But as far as video games, we'll go ahead and light this firecracker and kick it off with number 10, which for me might seem low on my list, but it's Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And, you know, for somebody that did not have a lot of faith in Gotham Knights and the end result pretty much proved that my red flags, my reservations were merited, I always had a lot more faith in this whenever it was first announced because it's actually Rocksteady. It's actually the people that made the Arkham games, notwithstanding of the Arkham Origins, obviously, the main Arkham games. And so that alone gave me more faith in this. But I got to be honest, I haven't seen anything really solid about this game that has gotten me excited beyond the fact that they just have goodwill with me from the Arkham games. I didn't think that the first trailer reveal looked all that interesting. You know, the story trailer reveal, where it was just like the cutscene was funny, but when they showed the gameplay, didn't necessarily look like the game that I was hoping it was going to be. And now they're releasing a lot more details regarding battle passes and microtransactions and all these different things. And that type of stuff just makes me put my guard up, because I'm not a big multiplayer guy. You know, I'm more of a story mode person. I'm kind of an antisocial gamer. I like to just escape into my world and, you know, be just me going through a story. And so this seems like it's going to be more of a squad thing. And with battle passes, that means you're going to have to keep buying battle passes and keep playing to actually get the money that you paid for, the worth out of your battle passes. So I don't know. It still makes my number 10 because there's not a whole lot of other games this year that's been announced that I'm that faithful on. But at the same time, it's Rocksteady. So I'm trying to keep my red flags within balance. I'm trying to stay even-keeled and until I actually see the game and play the game and hear the reviews. But for the studio that brought us the Arkham games, it's just, I don't know, Gotham Knights was a big swing and a miss. This one has me a little bit guarded. So I want more from this universe. I just hope this is a good surprise and not exactly what I'm fearing it's going to be. Number 9 is going to be Hogwarts Legacy. I know there's a bunch of controversy going on regarding J.K. Rowling and things that she has said and done and whatever. I haven't really looked into it too much, but as far as just the game itself, I've never been a huge Harry Potter fan, but this past year I finally watched all of the movies for my movie channel. We were doing a 31 on 31 ranking. And this game looks like it could be a lot of fun because whether or not I've been a big Harry Potter fan, it does look like a world that would be fun to just kind of go around in and actually experience the school. And, you know, the RPG elements really intrigue me on this, where I get to choose my classes and whatever house I end up going into and Quidditch or whatever else you end up doing here. You know, there's a lot of fun potential for a really cool open world experience with this game. So I don't really know what the story is, if there is a main story. I'm sure there is, but it's just the gameplay elements. It's just the possibilities of seeing the things that I've seen in the movies kind of come to life in a video game that has me excited for this one. Number 8 is going to be Dead Island 2, and to be honest with you, this game has not really been on my radar. I know it's been delayed and delayed and delayed ad nauseum, and supposedly this is finally going to be the year where it comes out. Hopefully it's not going to be a gigantic mess. If you're going to delay it that much, you better deliver a solid fucking game. But I'm a massive fan of Dying Light. I love the first Dying Light. I love that much more than the first Dead Island. But Dying Light 2 was a big disappointment for me, and that was a game that was released unfinished. So I hope that they're not going to continue that trend with this one. But it looks like all of the combat that I love from the Dying Light franchise, with maybe a little bit less of an open world, like parkour exploration element. And so I'm hoping there's going to be a cool story here or some cool missions. But the combat, the kills, the gore, it all looks pretty cool. And so for somebody that likes zombie games when they're done well, this could go either way. Number 7 is going to be Alan Wake 2. Now, I'll be honest with you, I am one of the very few people that never really was that enamored with the first Alan Wake. I've never heard anybody say anything short of, it's such an underrated classic, it's such an undervalued game, it's such a good game. I just never was part of that crowd. I thought it was fine. I played it. I thought it was fine. The story was intriguing. I never thought the gameplay was all that great. And the fact that it ends on a cliffhanger and doesn't really solve any of its mystery, and then, what was it, like 12 years until they announced this game? It's just never been one of those. I've never been on the Alan Wake train. And even when I played the Alan Wake remastered, it kind of just highlighted all the issues that I had with Alan Wake, and I couldn't get through more than a couple hours of it. But Alan Wake 2, being that it's built from the ground up for current gen consoles, and the guy that's the creator of it announced that it's more of a survival horror game than a psychological horror game, that has me excited. Control was a pretty good game. Again, I wasn't as enamored with it as everybody else, but it's going to be kind of along those veins and within the same universe. I guess they're tying them all together. And so the fact that over a decade later, somebody funded them to bring this franchise back, it gives me faith that they have a lot of really cool things in store. And, there's a lot of really good horror experiences that we're going to have this year, hopefully. So you'll see some more higher on the list. Number 6 is going to be Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and I liked Fallen Order quite a bit. That was one of the best Star Wars games for sure. I still had a few issues with it. I still thought that the gameplay, the fighting took me a while to get used to it. As far as the parrying and everything, I became kind of a master of the controls much later in the game than I should have. And I didn't like the fact that you always had to backtrack to your ship. There wasn't like a fast travel option once you completed the world. Little weird things like that. So it was enough of a really fun game and a good story, and one of the best games, if not the best game, to put you into the shoes of a Jedi, that I have a lot of faith that the sequel is going to be even better. The gameplay footage so far looks like it's very in line with the first game. Same type of gameplay, same type of setup, but they're making little incremental improvements, giving you some new combos where you can do a blaster and a lightsaber. I'm intrigued with this character for sure in the story now that they've introduced Darth Vader at the end of the first game, and I'm curious where things are going to go. So as somebody that has all but lost complete interest in the movies and the shows of Star Wars, the video games, I'm hoping, is still going to kind of keep my Star Wars fandom alive. Number 5 is going to be The Wolf Among Us 2, and I am somebody who that has loved a lot of what that company has done. The Walking Dead games were incredible. I loved the Batman games. The Wolf Among Us, though, might be my favorite. I thought that was such a cool and unique concept of doing the old fables and fairy tales, but making it more of like a rated R, seedy, kind of a noir kind of world. I loved the story of the first Wolf Among Us. It ends on some really intriguing questions of where things are going to go. And so I'm very excited to see where the story is going to go and get back into that style of game. I love those kind of point and click and story games that company has always brought us. And so I'm ready for them to kind of make a triumphant return. And hopefully that is exactly what The Wolf Among Us 2 will be. Number 4 is the only game on this list that I don't have a ton of faith is actually going to drop this year. And that is The Legend of Zelda, The Tears of the Kingdom. I want to say Breath of the Wild 2 too much, but Breath of the Wild 2, it's the sequel to that game. And I'm a late person to the party of Legend of Zelda. I never played the games growing up on any of the original Nintendo systems, not even Nintendo 64. So Breath of the Wild was actually my first experience in a Zelda game, and it was fantastic. I loved that game. Me and my wife both, and there's very rare video games that she gets into, and she was addicted to this thing even more than I was. We ended up getting all the shrines. I damn near 100%ed that game, if not 100%ed it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do to expand on that concept. I love the Nintendo Switch, but they just never really come out with many games that I want to play. So it's like I'm itching to use that system. There's just not enough that interests me. Like Metroid Dread was the only game I played 2 years ago on that entire system, the entire year. And last year I didn't pick it up at all. So I'm looking forward to pulling my Switch out again and checking out an awesome, hopefully awesome game. And if they just take what they did so well with Breath of the Wild and just expand on it and deliver that same experience just a little bit better, man, talk about it like almost instant game of the year. Number 3 is going to be the Dead Space remake. And luckily I don't have to wait too long to play this one. It's only about a week or so away. And I've been replaying the Dead Space games. I always loved Dead Space 2. I actually did not finish the first Dead Space back in the day. It was when I was graduating high school, and I think I just lost track of time and never went back to it. And I didn't hate Dead Space 3 near as much as everybody else. I thought it was still pretty good. So when they announced a remake, I was excited because this is a franchise that I've always kind of wondered, like, where the hell did that thing go? It was always so successful. The fans loved it. The critics loved it for the most part. Why did it just disappear? And so I'm excited that not only are we getting a remake of a game that I have finished now, I've went back and played the whole game and Dead Space 2. I'm going to pick up, do 3 on Game Pass as well so I can rank all of these. But a game that I have not had much of an experience with, the first one. And everything I've seen so far on how they're improving it and bringing it into the current generation looks like it's just going to make that game better. I'm hungry for some more survival horror experiences. And I hope the game is a huge success and we get Dead Space back on track and we get more Dead Space sequels. You know, I don't know if they're going to remake Dead Space 2 if this is a success or if they're just going to carry on and do a different timeline of Dead Space, but I want more Dead Space, and so I'm hoping this is going to be awesome, and it looks like it's going to be. Number 2 might shock some people that this is not my number 1, but number 2 is going to be the Resident Evil 4 remake. It's kind of weird. 2 of my top 3 are just games that we've gotten before in a new way. Resident Evil 4 is my second favorite video game of all time. It's my absolute favorite of the Resident Evil franchise. It's my favorite survival horror game of all time. I have a ton of deep-seated love for this game, and when they announced they were going to remake it, I was absolutely on the camp of awesome, let's see what you can do. I'm not really on the thing of, Resident Evil 4 doesn't need a remake, which it doesn't need a remake, but it could use one as long as it's good. And so I've loved what they did with Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 3 unfortunately was a little too short, but I still liked what they did with that game. And so if we get the level of production, the level of tender loving care that especially Resident Evil 2 got in a Resident Evil 4 remake, this is going to be easily probably my favorite of the franchise. It looks like they're going to be going more into a darker, a little bit more terrifying route with Resident Evil 4 and not so much of the camp that was in the original game, which I love. I don't know if I'm going to miss that or not, but I like the fact that it's going in a different direction. It's going to make the game feel a bit different while giving us a lot of the experience that we have with that game. So the gameplay improvements, especially, and everybody always bitches about the old school, just stand and you can only aim and you can't move controls. I'm curious on how they're going to evolve the boss fights, because there's some of the best boss fights in the entire video game history in Resident Evil 4. I'm curious where certain elements might be altered or missing or replaced with something in this one. So as somebody that knows Resident Evil 4 like the back of my hand, I am eternally intrigued with what we're going to get with this. And again, only a couple of months away, so I can't wait for this. And man, I hope they deliver. If they don't, people are going to riot, and I'm going to be right at the front holding the torch. But my number 1 most anticipated game of the year is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man was a phenomenal Spider-Man game, easily the best that's ever been. It's one of the best comic book games ever made. Like, it's stacked right up there with the Arkham Asylum, Arkham City games. And I loved the open world. I loved the swinging controls, the fighting controls. I adored the story. And Spider-Man Miles Morales was pretty much right there on par with it for a game that was kind of a glorified expansion. So I cannot wait to see what they do with this being made from the ground up for current gen consoles. The fact that we have Tony Todd playing Venom is just tickles the hell out of my horror heart.
Yes, we will.
And there's just a lot of story elements to this one, with Harry being Venom, and I think Kraven the Hunter is going to be the big bad in this one as well, that I'm so excited for just the story of Spider-Man 2, but I know the gameplay is going to absolutely kick ass. So Spider-Man 2, absolutely without a doubt, for only have just seen a teaser trailer, is my most anticipated game of the year. And if it's even just on par with the first Spider-Man, just like with Breath of the Wild, it's going to be a hard contender for game of the year. This thing looks like it's going to kick some serious ass. So that is my number 1 most anticipated game of 2023. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Please let me know your most anticipated games down below in the comments. I'm going to put a video right over here, which is my ranking of all the games I played last year. I'm also going to put my review of the original Spider-Man up here as well from my movie channel. Please check those out, like and share, and hit that subscribe button, because I have a ton of awesome content planned for this year. And as always, remember, the Game Chamber is Commander Shepard's favorite channel on the YouTubes.